Hello and welcome back to the kitchen and another episode of Cooking with Rev. No, I don't have a new cameraman. I actually have a selfie stick, so I can actually get wider angles now. Yay for selfie sticks, right? Okay, so what are we making today? Today we are making a very simple recipe, even simpler and probably quicker to cook than the previous easy meatloaf that I showed you guys how to make. The meatloaf probably wouldn't have been nearly as long as if I hadn't been making other things at the same time. This, I'm only making one thing for right now, so it'll be quick and easy, and you'll see just how easy in a moment. So let's flip the camera around and I will show you the ingredients you're going to need. Wait, did I even tell you what we're making yet? We are making a very simple vegetable soup. And now we'll flip the camera around and show you the ingredients you're going to need. Okay, so the first ingredient you're going to need in what is called an 8-can vegetable soup is you're going to need a can of Del Monte green beans. I use the cut green beans instead of the whole ones. You can use the French cut if you like. The recipe does say not to substitute, so get Del Monte. It is a little bit more pricey, but not super pricey. I think I pay like 80 cents versus 60 cents for the generic brand, so get Del Monte. So first you're going to need green beans. Second ingredient, also Del Monte, sliced potatoes. So you can see it says sliced potatoes. You can use the diced ones if you like diced. I use the sliced ones just because it gives the soup a little bit more texture. So that's can number 2. Can number 3 is sliced carrots, also Del Monte. Again, try not to use substitutes unless you absolutely can't avoid it. If you want to use a substitute that might be slightly cheaper, maybe use Libby's, but I would try and stick with Del Monte if you can. Number 4 is whole kernel corn. Again, Del Monte. Do not use cream style corn. That would be horrible. So, yeah. Whole kernel corn. Next up, Del Monte diced tomatoes. I got the basil and garlic and oregano because they were on sale 2 for 1. But you can use any Del Monte diced tomatoes. Doesn't matter the flavors, just regular or whatever. Just make sure they are Del Monte. This is not a sponsored video. This is just what the recipe calls for. Next item. 1 can of Hormel chili with no beans. This is probably the more expensive item out of the recipe. I think this was $1.50. Most of the canned goods are like 60 cents. Next item. Hormel chili. This one says no beans. The recipe calls for 1 with beans, 1 without beans. I don't like beans that much, so I'm doing 2 cans without. If you like beans, get 1 with, 1 without. The 1 without is basically to add additional meat content to the recipe. The beans just pad it out, which is why I use the sliced potatoes instead of the diced potatoes. Next can. Campbell's. Again, use Campbell's. And use Hormel. Old-fashioned vegetable soup. Now, as you can see, the cans are slightly different sizes. Campbell's doesn't make larger cans anymore, but it's okay because these soups are concentrate, which means when you make these, normally, you're supposed to also add a can of water after you empty the contents into the pan. You're supposed to add another can full of water to the soup to uncondense it, whatever the proper term for that is, and make a fuller pot of soup. This one we're using because it is condensed, and you'll see why shortly. So 1 can Campbell's old-fashioned vegetable soup. The final ingredient, in addition to our 8 cans that we just counted out, is this guy that we saw in the last video. This is McCormick's Original Taco Seasoning. You can use mild, medium, hot, whatever you like for your preference. I'm using original. It's somewhere between mild and medium. This one, you can substitute other brands if you don't like McCormick's because it doesn't really say a name brand for this one. It just says taco seasoning. So I use McCormick's because that's the one I prefer. You can use whatever on that. And there you have your 8 cans and 1 envelope. And now I'm going to show you how to prepare it. Okay, so the tools you're going to need for this recipe coming over here to the stove is 1 stock pot, a soup pot, whatever you want to call it, 1 lid, and 1 can opener. Most of these cans I tried to get the ones with the pull tabs, just so I didn't have to get out the can opener. Unfortunately, like for example, this is Del Monte can, this is Del Monte can. One has a pull tab, one doesn't. So you have to have a can opener on standby. Actually, there is a video online of how to open a can without a can opener in case you don't own one. I'm not going to try it today just because I don't want to make a mess. But yeah, so let's get started. Okay, the first thing you want to do, remove your lid from the pan, set it aside, and heat your pan to like a medium, slightly above medium high heat. And you're just going to let that heat. Now I'm going to open up all my cans and I will be right back. Okay, so here you see all my cans have been opened and ready to go. Do not drain any of these. That is the most important thing. Do not drain. And here is why. And one of the reasons why it says to use these specific name brands. The story behind this recipe is a friend of my mother's daughter got this recipe out of Weight Watchers magazine, I believe it was. Why she's reading a Weight Watchers magazine, I don't know. She's thin, so, but, you know, maybe she got that way by watching her weight. With Weight Watchers, they have all the sodium and everything from the way Del Monte and Hormel and Campbell's are packaged, and that's what they've measured out. Also, others, these are canned in like water, where the others are kind of canned in syrup, generic brands and things like that, which you may notice as you open things. So the reason you don't want to drain these is all the fluids in here are going to become your broth. That's why there's no real broth here. So first step up, you're going to take your potatoes and right over here into the pan, juice and all, just like that. Okay. Next up, we're going to take our green beans and again right into the pan, juice and all. Next up, our carrots, right over and into the pan. Okay. Next one is our corn, whole kernel, into the pan. We're really cooking here. Now, another thing you might want to have on hand is a spoon. I'll show you why in a second. I normally wouldn't use this to stir this up, but I'm going to just temporarily. So as you can see, it's already sort of looking like a vegetable soup, except you'll notice the broth is kind of clear. There's not really much to it. That's where your next 4 cans come in. First up, our tomatoes, juice and all, right there. Now you'll notice something slightly magical happens when you start to stir this in. Our broth starts to become kind of red. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Now onto our Hormel chili. This is where I want the spoon because this stuff doesn't come out easy, so I can scoop it out if I need to. So let's see what happens when we try to dump one of these in. Yeah. There we go, nice big can of dog food right in. And there's nothing additional in the can, so I don't need the spoon. So let's go for the second one. Again, one of these would normally be with beans, one without. I'm not a fan of beans, so I'm doing 2 without. So there's our second one. And the can's empty, didn't need the spoon. Alright, so now we're going to give these a stir in. And as you notice, the broth starts to darken a little bit, still has that nice red color. But now it's turning a little bit more of a brownish. And then you see it adds the meat content. It breaks up real easy, adds meat, beans, whatever into the soup. Now it's starting to look a little bit more like a vegetable soup, isn't it? Okay, so you get all that broken up and mixed in and incorporated. Now we go to our last can, which is the old-fashioned vegetable soup, which is basically what we're making. This basically helps thicken it up a little bit with the concentrate that's in here. Adds a few other minor vegetables that we don't have, and add some of those funny little noodles in there. So we're going to dump that in as well, whole can. As you can see, there's a little bit of stuff left in there, so you can see it. Not really. There's a couple little carrots and things holding on. I'm going to scoop those out with a spoon, and we'll be right back. Okay, so that's in, and I've given it a little bit of a stir here. Wow, that's a big piece of sliced potato. And just going to give it a nice stir around. Again, I don't want to use this particular spoon because it is a Teflon pan. So I'm going to grab one of my normal spoons here, give it a nice mix. And one final ingredient here is our taco seasoning. This is where all your spices and things come in. So I'm going to rip this open and we'll be back in a second. Okay, so there we have our taco seasoning opened, and we're just going to dump the whole packet right in there like that. Give it a nice tap, make sure we got all the good stuff out of the bottom. And we're going to stir that in and incorporate it. That is all the seasonings that you need, except for maybe if you want to add a little bit more salt or pepper for your taste. But this is all that the Weight Watchers book called for, because this is all the sodium and everything that you will need for this recipe. I don't know what the exact calorie count is on it. You can look it up if you want. Okay. And now that's all incorporated, like so. Take a look at it. Doesn't that look like a nice bit of vegetable stew? Alright, so now what you want to do is put your lid back on it, bring it up to a simmer, and I will be back once this is simmering. Okay kids, we're back. So as you can see, this has been steaming for a while. Also, make sure you guys do stir this occasionally. You don't want the vegetables to stick to the bottom of the pan and start to burn. I actually forgot about it for a second because I was looking for another recipe I'm going to make soon. And it did stick a little bit, but as you can see, it's starting to simmer. You can see the cloudiness on top and the little bubbles forming there. So ultimately what you're looking for is when you stir this, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there is steam coming off of it. When you stir it up, you want it to almost immediately boil again. Steam coming off of it is a good indicator that it's heated, but as you can see, it's already starting to come back to a boil here. And that means that it's heated evenly all the way through. So as it comes back to a boil, if you stir it, you're mixing everything in, bringing the cold from the bottom, or the hot from the bottom up to the top, and pushing the cold back down to the bottom. And if it immediately starts to come back up to a simmer again, like it is here, that means that it is heated all the way through. So there you have it. That is your quick and easy vegetable soup. And then you just kind of dish it out into a bowl. I'm not going to use a slotted spoon because I do want the broth. And that is it. So at this point you can turn off your burner, remove it from the burner if you want, set it aside until dinner time, which is where that's going to go. If you do cook it in advance and then you're not going to have dinner for a couple hours, just turn the burner back on, just stir it regularly until it comes back up to heat like I just showed you. And yeah, that's it. That is your quick and easy vegetable soup. So there you have it, guys. Hope you enjoyed that recipe. It was a lot quicker and easier than the last couple that I've showed you. Just a quick, easy vegetable soup. If it's cold outside, nice way to heat you up. Again, I would show you me eating it, but that's for dinner tonight, so it's going to set aside, bring it back down to room temperature. Then I'll probably put it in the fridge until Mom gets home from work tonight, and then I'll put it on the stove and reheat it. Or I can throw a bowl of it in the microwave, whichever you prefer. One other note on it, you don't have to use the taco seasoning, because the recipe I originally got from my mother's friend's daughter, or whoever it was that I got it from, maybe my mother's friend had gave it to me that her daughter had given to her. Originally the recipe didn't have the listing for the taco seasoning. I actually lost the recipe at one point, couldn't remember all of what went in it. I don't know why, it's a simple enough recipe, just walk down the Del Monte aisle and grab every can you see basically. But I couldn't remember what all was in it, so I was looking for, there was like one thing, it was the old-fashioned vegetable soup was the one I couldn't remember. And I was like, I know there's another can, because I had 7. And I was like, I know there's another can, I know there's another can, what is it? So I was looking for it online, and that's when I found that the actual listing on the Weight Watchers website, or some version of their website, where it actually also included the taco seasoning. So I tried it. It is a little bit spicier that way. Like I said, if you're more of a mild person, use mild. If you don't like a lot of spice, because like when I eat it, it does kind of clear my sinuses. You get that runny nose. Like if you eat a nice bowl of chili, even if it's not hot chili, it can still kind of clear your sinuses, make you sweat a little bit. So it does add that to the soup. If you don't like that, leave the packet of chili seasoning or taco seasoning out. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, you can add a little bit more salt or pepper to taste. I usually add a little bit of pepper to it, but I do that per bowl, so I'm not overpowering the whole thing, because it does have a lot of spice to it already. So that is it for this episode. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember, like, comment, rate, subscribe, share the video. Links are down there in the description and up there in that corner or that corner. One of these corners. Forget if this mirrors once I put it up or not. If not, it'll be up in that corner. So links are up there, and until next time, I don't know if I like the phrase of get out of the kitchen. It was supposed to be a play on if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, but it's not really, I don't really make a lot of spicy foods. That would be more of something for like a spicy food type of thing, but it's all I got for now, so until next time, get out of the kitchen.